Hello, Namaskar. I am Dr. Dilip Panda. Supreme Court reps Rahul for remarks on Savarkar by stating, "Let's not mock our freedom fighters." From this, the rightists, I mean the RSS and the BJP, will they swing into action to defend Savarkar anywhere by stating this version of the Supreme Court, that Supreme Court has already given a stamp on Savarkar being a freedom fighter as equivalent to the Supreme Court judgment on Hindutva as a way of life. When Supreme Court, the answer to this question will be very elaborative, but I will try to be very brief. When Supreme Court recently pulled up Rahul Gandhi for his remarks about Savarkar, saying, "Let's not mock our freedom fighters," it was just a stern reminder from the court about maintaining dignity while talking about historical figures, especially those widely regarded for officially acknowledged as part of the freedom movement. But is this a concrete official recognition of Savarkar as a freedom fighter by the Supreme Court? Answer to this question would be, if we speak legally, no, with an emphatic capital N-O, it is not. The Supreme Court's comment was not a judicial declaration that Savarkar is officially a freedom fighter. It was more of a general caution, essentially saying that people who are part of India's historical memory, however contested, should not be mocked in a cavalier manner. Courts very often make oral observations that are not binding and do not have the status of law unless they are part of a formal written judgment. Now, on Savarkar himself, let's see. In his earlier days, he was considered to be a revolutionary, famously writing the first War of Indian Independence in 1909 and being imprisoned in the cellular jail in the Andamans. However, in a later period, he submitted multiple mercy petitions to the Britishers for the famous clemency letters, which were released later on. Post-release, he was largely aligned with the Hindu Mahasabhaj politics and had never participated in the Gandhian mass movements like non-cooperation movement or Quit India movement, that is, in freedom struggle. Because of this shift, many historians and critics argue that his commitment to active anti-British resistance weakened significantly after his release from jail. Thus, in popular memory and among political groups, Savarkar's status is deeply contested. Some revere him as a great freedom fighter, like the rightist RSS and BJP people. Others criticize him as someone who compromised with the British Empire. So, the comment of Supreme Court is more about decorum and respect for historical figures, not an historical endorsement. Savarkar's classification as a freedom fighter remains politically and historically debated, and no final judicial or government decree has colonized him in that role the way it had for, say, for Gandhiji, Nehru, Patel, or others. We can we can have the version of some of the renowned historians. Take, for example, historian Bipan Chandra, the left-leaning historian like Mridula Mukherjee. According to Bipan Chandra, in India's struggle for independence, he gives Savarkar much space. Hardly he has given space for Savarkar. Almost he has not given any space Savarkar as a freedom fighter. Whenever he mentions about Savarkar, it is only in the context of early revolutionary activity of Savarkar, that is bombings, secret forming of secret societies, etc. before 1911, that is before his imprisonment. Post his release, Savarkar is largely seen as retreating into communal and sectarian Hindu politics, never participating in mass national movements against the Britishers. Bipan Chandra strongly criticizes the Hindu Mahasabha, which was led by Savarkar, for collaborating with the British during the Quit India movement. Early revolutionary and later reactionary cannot be a consistent freedom fighter as on the basis of Bipan Chandra's view. Historian Ramachandra Guha acknowledges Savarkar's personal courage and intellectual impact, especially in inspiring armed revolution in the early 1900s. But Guha is very critical of Savarkar's later ideological evolution, that is, from anti-British revolutionary to pro-Hindu communalist, lack of participation in Gandhi-led mass struggles. Guha sees Savarkar's Hindutva as fundamentally divisive and a departure from inclusive nationalism. Guha often places Savarkar outside the mainstream nationalist pantheon, such as Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Subhash Bose, etc. Bikram Sampath, the historian, who is Savarkar's modern biographer, who has got two-volume biography of Savarkar, that is Savarkar, Ethos from a Forgotten Past, and Savarkar, a Contested Legacy. However, Bikram Sampath is somehow sympathetic to Savarkar. He presents Savarkar as a complex and misunderstood historical figure. He submitted mercy petition. He has agreed that. But Sampath argues it was a strategic move. It was never a cowardice move, according to Sampath. Sampath also emphasizes the early sacrifices made by Savarkar, that is, intense suffering in prison and intellectual contribution through Hindutva ideology. Sampath defends Savarkar against charges of being a British collaborator later, arguing that Hindu Mahasabha's strategy was pragmatic, considering the communist threat and the situation in World War II. So, the view of Sampath on Savarkar that a full-fledged freedom fighter whose contributions are undervalued. Some other critical voices like A.G. Nurani or historian Irfan Habib, they view Savarkar's mercy petition as proof that he abandoned armed struggle. They point out that Savarkar opposed Quit India movement of 1942 and encouraged Hindus to join the British Indian Army. They strongly associate Savarkar with sectarian Hindu politics rather than broad-based anti-colonial nationalism. So here we can have a compiled elaboration on Savarkar and in the context of the latest observation of the Supreme Court on Rahul Gandhi's speech where he had mentioned Savarkar in a derogatory way. Thank you.